Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in a time where deception wears designer suits and manipulation comes dressed as love. But there's a force rising in the earth, not loud, not showy, but powerful. She doesn't need to shout. She doesn't need to prove. She is a woman of virtue. Today I want to talk to you not just about femininity, but about virtue as a weapon, about why only a virtuous woman can utterly dismantle the grip of a narcissist, not by fighting dirty, but by standing tall, by being who God called her to be. Let's begin. Virtue is often misunderstood in our generation. Too many associate it with fragility, with softness, with something outdated and powerless. But that's a lie. Virtue is not weakness. Virtue is power under control. It is strength wrapped in discipline. It is fire governed by purpose. Virtue is the force that stands tall in a world that constantly wants to pull you low. A woman of virtue is not one who avoids conflict. She is one who knows how to stand with grace in the midst of it, without losing her peace, her posture, or her identity. To be virtuous means you have decided to live by principle, not by preference. You are governed by internal truth, not external pressure. The narcissist thrives in environments of inconsistency, chaos, and confusion. But a virtuous woman carries a divine order within her spirit. Her emotions do not drive her. Her values do. She is not led by approval. She is anchored in assignment. She knows who she is, and because of that, she doesn't need to beg, prove, or perform for validation. Power that is not anchored in character becomes destructive. That's the narcissist. But power that is anchored in virtue becomes unshakable. That's the woman who cannot be moved. The narcissist uses manipulation as his weapon, but the virtuous woman uses identity as her defense. When a woman is rooted in her divine identity, when she understands her worth is not up for debate, she becomes impossible to control. She becomes immune to the narcissist's tactics because his tricks only work on those who are unsure of themselves. Let me tell you something profound. The greatest threat to a narcissist is not a loud woman, an aggressive woman, or even a successful woman. It is a virtuous woman. Because while all the others can be swayed, triggered, or baited, the virtuous woman is governed by something higher than emotion. She's governed by truth. She doesn't just carry it, she embodies it. And the moment she walks into a situation, truth begins to expose every lie. Not because she argues, not because she fights, but because light doesn't have to speak to dominate darkness. It just has to show up. This is why virtue is power. A woman of virtue doesn't need to raise her voice to be heard. Her silence can speak volumes. Her absence can be louder than someone else's presence. When she walks away from the narcissist, he doesn't just lose her, he loses his supply. He loses the mirror he used to see a false image of himself. And when the mirror is gone, the mask starts to crack. You see, the narcissist relies on the weakness of others. He feeds off their brokenness. He needs people to be insecure so he can feel superior. He needs others to be confused so he can feel wise. He needs you to doubt yourself so he can play the savior. But when a virtuous woman steps into the room, she brings clarity. Her presence says, I know who I am, and I will not bow to what you've created. That's not pride. That's purpose. A virtuous woman has standards. She doesn't compromise her peace for temporary attention. She doesn't exchange her value for emotional breadcrumbs. She doesn't entertain confusion because her soul is anchored. Her no is holy. Her yes is deliberate. Her boundaries are not walls of fear. They are gates of wisdom. And when a narcissist sees that, he is intimidated. Not because she's attacking him, but because he realizes he cannot manipulate her. The power of virtue is that it exposes. It shines a light on everything counterfeit. The narcissist thrives when he can camouflage, when he can pretend to be what he's not. But a woman of virtue is discerning. She sees beyond the surface. She doesn't just hear what's said. She senses the spirit behind it. And that discernment is dangerous to deception. That insight makes her untouchable. Not because she knows everything, but because she listens deeply to the voice of truth within her. The virtuous woman has strength, but her strength is not loud. It is quiet, steady, and enduring. She has been through fire, but it didn't burn her, it refined her. She knows betrayal, but it didn't break her, it built her. She has faced rejection, but she turned it into redirection. And because of this, she is not bitter, she is better. The narcissist cannot handle that kind of growth because he is still stuck in performance and she has moved into purpose. There is something deeply unsettling to a narcissist when he realizes he cannot shake you. He throws accusations and you remain calm. He withholds affection and you remain full. He creates chaos and you remain composed. That's the power of virtue. It is unbothered. It is not arrogant, but it is aware of its value, aware of its assignment, aware of its authority. And here's the secret. Virtue is not natural, it is intentional. You become virtuous by choice, not chance. You must choose to grow, to heal, to forgive, to walk away from what feels familiar but is no longer fruitful. It takes courage to become virtuous. It takes discipline. It takes vision. But once you walk in it, you walk in power that the narcissist cannot touch. He can mimic charm. He can rehearse affection. He can counterfeit intimacy. But he cannot replicate virtue. Because virtue is born in the presence of God. It is shaped in the quiet places. And it shines brightest in the face of deception. So if you are a woman walking the path of virtue, understand this. You don't have to fight for dominance. Your virtue is your defense. Your character is your weapon. Your wholeness is your victory. You don't have to destroy the narcissist. Your existence already does. A narcissist thrives in environments where they can manipulate perception, twist reality, and provoke emotional chaos. Their strategy is simple. Keep you off balance, make you question yourself, and create a cycle where you're constantly trying to please or prove yourself. But there is one thing, one type of person they cannot penetrate, cannot control, and cannot defeat. A virtuous woman. She is not moved by noise nor shaken by charm. And more importantly, she doesn't need external validation to confirm her worth. The narcissist game begins and ends with attention, positive or negative. If he can get your energy, he believes he owns your power. He feeds off reaction. He thrives on control. But when he meets a woman who is governed not by her emotions but by principle, not by insecurity but by identity, the game collapses. His power dissolves. Why? Because a virtuous woman doesn't give him what he needs to survive. She does not enter the emotional arena with him. She doesn't play the ping-pong game of insults, love bombing, silence, and manipulation. She's not available for that. Not because she's arrogant, not because she's cold, but because she's rooted. She has learned that just because someone throws bait doesn't mean she has to bite. She has wisdom to pause before responding and discernment to see beyond the surface. That's what makes her dangerous to a narcissist. She's not reactive. She's stable. To the narcissist, this woman is an enigma. He will try to figure her out, project onto her, provoke her, but he will be met with calm, measured presence. And when he doesn't get the emotional rise he's hunting for, he begins to unravel because he realizes she cannot be moved like others. She cannot be manipulated with gifts, compliments, or guilt. She isn't interested in being flattered. She's only interested in truth. What makes her so unshakable? It's not personality. It's character. It's virtue. Virtue gives her discernment. She knows what's real and what's performance. She recognizes when words don't match actions. She listens more to patterns than to promises. The narcissist's charm fades quickly in her presence because she's not intoxicated by words. She's anchored in principles. The narcissist's biggest weapon is confusion. He blurs boundaries, rewrites narratives, makes you second-guess your instincts. But the virtuous woman is not easily confused because she's grounded in clarity. She has done her internal work. She knows her values. She has defined her standards. So even if he comes in the form of light, his darkness will be exposed, not by confrontation, but simply by her refusal to compromise. Her silence speaks louder than her words. Her refusal to engage is more powerful than retaliation. While others fight the narcissist and wear themselves out in cycles of arguing and begging, the virtuous woman exits the game entirely. She does not participate. She observes. She lets the narcissist reveal himself without lifting a finger. And the most profound truth is this: the narcissist cannot control someone who is not afraid to be alone. That's where many get caught. The fear of abandonment, the desire for approval, the longing to be chosen, all of it becomes the soil where narcissistic manipulation grows. But the virtuous woman has cultivated wholeness within herself. She is not desperate for connection. She is not looking for a savior. She is already filled. This inner fulfillment is what makes her impenetrable. She doesn't need someone to make her feel valuable. She already carries that value in her spirit. And because she's not hungry for validation, the narcissist cannot bait her with shallow affection or conditional love. Instead of being drawn into his world, she becomes a mirror to his dysfunction. Her composure exposes his instability. Her consistency reveals his volatility. Her quiet strength convicts his performance. He begins to see himself clearly, and that is his greatest fear. The narcissist thrives in confusion, but a virtuous woman brings clarity. He thrives in manipulation, but she walks in truth. He thrives in codependency, but she lives in freedom. That's why he cannot survive in her presence for long. He will either try harder to break her spirit, or he will retreat entirely. Either way, she remains standing, not because she fought harder, but because she refused to descend. The virtuous woman doesn't destroy the narcissist by attacking him. She destroys his influence by being immune to it. And that immunity doesn't come from perfection. It comes from alignment. Alignment with purpose, with values, with divine identity. She is not trying to win the narcissist. She's already won the internal war within herself. She doesn't need to get the last word because peace is her portion. She doesn't need revenge because wisdom already told her the end. And because of that, she becomes a force the narcissist cannot withstand. She is what he pretends to be, powerful, centered, and whole. That's why only a virtuous woman can dismantle the grip of a narcissist, not by force, but by presence. Not by shouting, but by standing. She doesn't need to destroy him. Her wholeness already has. A woman who knows who she is does not need to prove anything to anyone. Her identity is not up for negotiation. It is not shaped by compliments or criticism. It is not dictated by what she's been through, nor is it diminished by who walked away. Her identity is rooted in something deeper than emotion. It is anchored in truth, and from that place of identity she walks in quiet authority. A narcissist thrives in spaces where identity is shaky, where people are unsure of their value. That's where he can plant seeds of doubt, control through confusion, and twist perception to serve his agenda. But when he encounters a woman whose identity is solid, he finds no doorway in, because her sense of self does not shift with his mood swings or his manipulative tactics. She does not second-guess herself just because he withdraws affection. She does not chase closure from someone who is addicted to chaos. She understands that her identity is not up for discussion. This kind of woman is dangerous to a narcissist. Not because she fights, not because she screams, but because she sees, she discerns, she remains unmoved. She has authority, not over him, but over herself. And that is a threat to anyone who tries to dominate through insecurity. The narcissist is skilled in illusion. He creates a version of reality where he is always the victim, always the prize, always the center. And he relies on the other person to lose themselves in that illusion. But a woman grounded in her identity refuses to participate in the lie. She doesn't play the game. She doesn't bite the bait. When he gaslights her, she doesn't question her memory because she knows what she saw. She knows what she heard. She trusts her discernment. And because she trusts herself, she doesn't need constant validation from him or anyone else. There is something powerful about a woman who walks in authority without arrogance. She doesn't have to declare that she's strong. She doesn't have to parade her independence. Her strength is revealed in her stability, in her consistency, in her ability to remain calm in the face of provocation. The narcissist tries to make her feel small, but she's already resolved that her worth was settled before he ever entered the picture. She has nothing to prove because she already knows who she is. This inner confidence creates a boundary the narcissist cannot cross. He may try to love bomb her, but she isn't easily impressed. He may try to devalue her, but she doesn't internalize it. He may try to hoover his way back into her life, but she recognizes patterns, and she doesn't allow her emotions to override her wisdom, because her identity is not based on how others treat her. It's based on how she sees herself. And how she sees herself is shaped by divine truth, not temporary approval. The narcissist plays chess with people's emotions, always thinking several manipulative steps ahead. But the woman with true identity doesn't need to play games, because truth will always outlast manipulation. Her authority is not reactionary. It is established. It is evident in how she carries herself, how she walks away without fear, how she protects her peace without explanation, how she keeps her dignity intact, even when everything around her is trying to pull her into dysfunction. She is not governed by the narcissist's mood swings. She is not triggered by his silent treatment. She doesn't beg for clarity from someone who profits off her confusion. Instead, she moves with clarity already. She walks in direction. Her confidence makes her immune to the traps he sets. And that is what destroys the narcissist. Not because she attacked him, but because she stood untouched by his tactics. He cannot manipulate her because she's not afraid of being alone. He cannot control her because she's not desperate to be chosen. He cannot define her because she's already been defined by something eternal. She doesn't need a title to know she's valuable. She doesn't need attention to know she's worthy. She doesn't need validation to know she is enough. This kind of woman is rare and powerful. Not because she dominates, but because she stands. Not because she's loud, but because she's clear. Not because she wins arguments, but because she knows when to walk away. And when a narcissist meets this kind of woman, everything he uses to manipulate becomes useless. Every tactic falls flat. Every game is exposed because she sees through it and she simply won't play. That's why identity is authority. Not the kind that controls others, but the kind that governs self. The kind that says, I don't need to chase you. I choose me. The kind that says, I don't need your apology to move on. I have peace within. The kind that says, I am not for sale. I already know my price. When a woman reaches that level of clarity, she becomes untouchable. And to a narcissist, that is destruction. Because she is no longer a supply, she is a standard, and he cannot meet it. The virtuous woman does not live her life from a place of emotional reactivity. She lives from a foundation of wisdom. And this is precisely why she confounds and ultimately defeats the narcissist. A narcissist is a master of emotional manipulation. He knows how to trigger, how to provoke, how to stir up confusion and chaos. He feeds off emotional responses like a parasite feeds off a host. But when he meets a woman who no longer reacts, but instead responds with measured wisdom, his power begins to unravel. You see, reacting is easy. It's instinctual. It's what the narcissist wants because it gives him fuel. He can twist your reaction to make you look unstable. He can turn your pain into proof of your emotional imbalance. But a woman of wisdom is not governed by impulse. She does not live at the mercy of her feelings. She has matured beyond emotional dependency, and she no longer hands over her peace in exchange for someone else's chaos. Wisdom teaches her to observe before she speaks, to discern before she decides, to pause before she engages. The narcissist depends on knee-jerk reactions, on you saying something you regret, doing something you didn't mean, spiraling into confusion and then apologizing for it. But a wise woman understands that silence is sometimes louder than screams. She knows that withholding a response is not weakness, it's warfare. Because when you refuse to be baited into dysfunction, you remove the narcissist's ability to cast you as the unstable one. When a narcissist encounters a woman who responds instead of reacts, his entire strategy falls apart. He sends a text designed to provoke, she doesn't respond. He stages an emotional scene. She watches calmly. He accuses, blames, and projects, but she doesn't absorb any of it. Not because she's cold, but because she's clear. She knows what belongs to her and what doesn't. And when someone throws emotional garbage her way, she doesn't pick it up and carry it. She leaves it where it lies. This is what wisdom looks like in action. It's not passive. It's powerful. It's not emotional detachment. It's emotional mastery. The narcissist wants to entangle you in a web of constant drama, to have you questioning your reality, doubting your worth, begging for clarity. He will never provide. But the wise woman knows that clarity does not come from people. It comes from truth. And she doesn't need to chase answers from a broken source. She knows that any relationship that depends on her silencing her discernment is not one worth keeping. What frustrates the narcissist the most is not the woman who yells or fights back. He thrives on that. It gives him a sense of superiority. What truly disarms him is the woman who sees right through him and refuses to play the game. She doesn't need to win the argument because she already won the war within herself. She has reached the point where peace is non-negotiable, and no manipulator is worth disturbing her alignment with God, her purpose, or her emotional balance. She may once have been reactive. Perhaps she once screamed, cried, begged, pleaded. But she grew, she matured, she learned, and now she walks in quiet authority. She chooses when to speak. She chooses if she will respond. She understands timing, tone, and truth. And because of this, the narcissist can no longer control the narrative. His accusations no longer stick. His tactics fall flat. His charm is met with discernment. His threats are met with stillness. She knows something he doesn't. True power is not loud. It's measured. It's intentional. And it never has to force itself. By responding with wisdom instead of reacting with emotion, she becomes an immovable force, a grounded woman, a pillar that cannot be shaken. And that's terrifying to a narcissist, because his entire illusion of power depends on the illusion of control. When he loses control of her emotions, he loses access to her life. And that's how she wins, not by outsmarting him, but by outgrowing the need for his validation. Wisdom tells her that she doesn't need closure, especially from someone who profits off keeping doors halfway open. Wisdom tells her that silence is a full sentence. Wisdom tells her that boundaries are not walls, they're filters. And the more she leans into this inner knowing, the more she separates herself from his reach. Eventually, the narcissist moves on, not because he's won, but because he's lost. He realizes he can't manipulate what he can't move. He can't confuse what's rooted in truth. He can't twist a woman who refuses to bend for false love. And so he retreats. But she rises. And she walks away not bitter, not broken, but wiser, stronger, and more whole than she's ever been. A narcissist is a master at twisting truth. He knows how to take something sacred and make it seem foolish. He manipulates perception until right looks wrong and wrong looks justifiable. But when he encounters a woman of unshakable standards, the game changes completely. Standards are not rules set by society or religious rituals done out of habit. They are the expression of a person's internal alignment with truth, with righteousness, and with purpose. And a virtuous woman does not borrow her standards from the crowd. She gets them from her convictions. The narcissist looks for someone he can bend, someone who will slowly compromise just to keep peace, someone who will loosen her boundaries in the name of love, someone who will choose temporary attention over eternal identity. But the virtuous woman, she's built on the rock. Her decisions are not driven by emotion. They are rooted in principle. She doesn't adjust her value to match what's trending or what pleases others. She knows that once you lower your standard for someone, you give them the blueprint to manipulate you again and again. So she holds the line. And this is what destroys the narcissist. Not loud defiance, not arguments or retaliation, but her refusal to move off of what she knows is right. He expects her to fold, to beg, to chase, to be desperate. But she does none of that. She may grieve, but she doesn't grovel. She may hurt, but she does not lose her dignity, because her standards were not birthed in the presence of people. They were birthed in the presence of God. And what God gave her, no man can make her give up. You see, the narcissist wants to operate in a gray zone. He wants moral flexibility. He wants a space where he can say one thing and do another, where he can charm his way past accountability. But the virtuous woman's standards create clarity. They shine a light on inconsistency. They expose contradiction. They make double-mindedness uncomfortable. Her consistency becomes confrontation without her saying a word. She doesn't have to accuse her life convicts. It's not just about sexual purity or surface-level behavior. This woman has standards in how she speaks, how she gives, how she receives love, how she walks through offense, how she forgives, how she waits, how she hopes. Everything about her is set to a divine frequency. And so when a narcissist tries to bring his falsehood into her world, he finds it hard to breathe. Her presence is too honest, her love too pure, her loyalty too discerning. Her no means no, and her yes isn't for sale. He might try to shame her. He might call her too much, too intense, too deep, too cold, too spiritual. But all he's really saying is, you're too whole for me to manipulate. Her refusal to bend frustrates him because he doesn't know how to dominate a woman who cannot be bought with attention. She's not waiting for him to validate her. So his tactics fall flat. He cannot guilt her into staying in dysfunction because she's not afraid to walk away from anything that costs her her peace. This woman doesn't just set standards. She lives them in secret when no one is watching. That's why her power is so potent. She's not performing. She's becoming. And because she has already sacrificed her need to be liked, she cannot be controlled through approval or rejection. The narcissist cannot figure her out because she's not reacting to him. She's responding to a higher call. And here is what truly dismantles the narcissist. Her standards reflect a vision. She's not just saying no to him, she's saying yes to purpose. Her standards are not defensive, they are prophetic. They are building something greater than herself. And the narcissist who lives for the moment cannot compete with a woman who is living for eternity. He lives for impression. She lives for impact. He seeks applause. She seeks alignment. In the beginning, he may try to imitate her. He might act like he shares her values. He might pretend to uphold her standards. But time always exposes truth. And the longer he stays, the more uncomfortable he becomes. Because he realizes she's not changing. She's not compromising. She's not lowering the bar just to keep him around. So he begins to fade, not because she pushed him away, but because she refused to make herself small. And in the absence of compromise, his influence withers, and that right there is power. Not the power to manipulate, not the power to dominate, but the power to be immovable. That kind of woman breaks cycles. That kind of woman rewrites bloodlines. That kind of woman isn't loud, but her life speaks so loudly that even in her absence, her standards echo in the room. She didn't destroy the narcissist by trying to change him. She destroyed him by refusing to change herself. The narcissist thrives on blurred lines. Confusion is his favorite climate. He moves in spaces where boundaries are weak, where people do not know how to say no without guilt, where access is granted through emotional manipulation, and where silence is mistaken for peace. But when a woman walks in virtue, she doesn't just carry a sense of morality. She carries divine clarity. And from that clarity, she builds boundaries that cannot be violated. Boundaries are not walls of bitterness. They are gates of wisdom. They are not rooted in fear, but in identity. A virtuous woman knows who she is. And because she knows who she knows what she must protect. The narcissist, on the other hand, is always searching for a doorway. He knocks with charm, persistence, or pity. Anything that will bypass your discernment. But when he meets a woman whose boundaries are built on values, not feelings, he finds no entry point. You see, a boundary is not just something you set. It's something you enforce. It's not just a decision. It's a discipline. And that's where the virtuous woman stands out. She doesn't just say this is not acceptable. She lives it consistently. Her yes is yes, and her no is no. She doesn't send mixed signals. She doesn't tolerate repeated disrespect disguised as mistakes. She doesn't engage in emotional tug of war with someone who's trying to wear her down. She's not cruel, but she is clear. And that clarity is what begins to dismantle the narcissist's influence. He may try to argue. He may try to guilt trip. He may even try to love bomb. But he cannot thrive in an environment where access is no longer automatic. When the virtuous woman draws her line in the sand and stands on it, not out of pride, but out of principle, the narcissist is confronted with a reality he cannot manipulate. That reality is self-control. The virtuous woman doesn't just control what she does. She controls what she allows. She guards her peace. She watches her energy. She doesn't open the door every time someone knocks. She discerns the spirit, not just the smile, because she understands that not everyone deserves access and that her inner world is sacred. That's why the narcissist, who is addicted to reaction, starts to crumble when she stops giving him what he craves. He wants attention, but she gives him distance. He wants confusion, but she responds with clarity. He wants emotional chaos, but she remains composed. He wants validation, but she's already rooted in God's approval. And here's the truth. Boundaries don't just protect her, they expose him. They reveal the narcissist's inability to respect, to wait, to honor, because what he cannot cross, he tries to crush. But the virtuous woman doesn't bend to pressure. She doesn't need to explain herself endlessly. She doesn't feel the need to over-justify her standards. Why? Because she's not living for approval. She's living from conviction. A narcissist will always test the limits. He will push, pull, charm, and provoke. But when he keeps hitting the same firm line over and over, he begins to lose momentum. He realizes he cannot mold her. He cannot move her. She's not reacting. She's rising. This kind of woman, grounded, self-aware, and spiritually aligned, is a mirror the narcissist hates. Not because she's cruel, but because she forces him to confront what he truly is. She doesn't return insult for insult. She doesn't stoop to his games. Instead, she sets her boundary, enforces it with consistency, and refuses to shrink. The power of her virtue is seen in her restraint, in her peace, in the calm authority she walks in. She doesn't need to block everyone out of her life to be safe. She just needs to protect her gates, because she knows the value of what's inside her. She doesn't allow just anyone to come in and defile it. That's why she's effective. That's why she breaks the cycle. That's why the narcissist can't stay. You see, a woman without boundaries becomes a playground for toxicity. But a woman with divine boundaries becomes a sanctuary of strength. The narcissist cannot manipulate what he cannot touch. And when he realizes she is no longer available emotionally, spiritually, mentally, he begins to unravel. Because without access, he has no power. The virtuous woman doesn't have to expose the narcissist to others. Her very life exposes him. Her boundaries reveal his brokenness. Her firmness reveals his instability. Her wisdom reveals his foolishness. And so she doesn't destroy him with anger. She doesn't fight him with vengeance. She simply stands, and in doing so, everything false around her begins to fall. That is the power of a virtuous woman who understands and protects her boundaries. She becomes unshakable. And in the presence of such unwavering strength, the narcissist has only two options: change or leave. Either way, she wins. Influence is one of the most powerful forces on earth. And when it is rooted in virtue, it becomes unstoppable. A virtuous woman carries influence not because she seeks to control, seduce, or manipulate, but because she embodies something eternal. She doesn't use her voice to seduce. She uses her life to teach. She doesn't rely on external tactics to be heard. Her presence is the message. A narcissist, on the other hand, operates in the counterfeit of influence. He manipulates to gain access, deceives to gain power, and seduces to gain control. But his influence is temporary, hollow, and dependent on illusions. He needs performance. He needs affirmation. He needs attention. Without it, he withers. He thrives on being the center, not because he's secure, but because he is empty. His influence is noise. It draws the eye, but not the soul. But the virtuous woman, she influences without needing to be the loudest. Her strength is quiet, but unmistakable. Her decisions speak louder than her lips. Her consistency creates a ripple effect that shifts atmospheres. She doesn't argue her worth. She walks in it. And that walk transforms everyone around her without a single word needing to be said. This kind of influence breaks the narcissist. It frustrates him. It confuses him because he cannot understand a woman who refuses to chase him. He cannot grasp a woman who has no need to flatter or be flattered. He's used to pulling people in with charm, then controlling them with confusion. But when he meets a woman who doesn't move based on emotions, who doesn't flinch when he withdraws affection or tries to provoke jealousy, his system begins to collapse. He is used to seduction as a weapon, but she uses integrity as a standard. And here's the secret. The virtuous woman influences through alignment. She is aligned with truth. She is aligned with purpose. She is aligned with God. And when you are in alignment, you don't have to force anything. Influence flows naturally, like oil on the head of a priest. It descends in order. There is clarity. There is grace. There is undeniable weight to her presence. People listen to her not because she demands attention, but because she has earned respect. She doesn't demand loyalty. She inspires it. She doesn't manipulate people to follow her. Her example compels them to grow. The narcissist can imitate success. He can fake confidence. He can rehearse humility. But he cannot produce the fruit of a woman whose heart is grounded in virtue. And that's why she is so dangerous to him. He is used to having to perform to be accepted, but she accepts herself fully with or without applause. He is used to using guilt and shame to control, but she walks in the light. There's nothing hidden, nothing you can use against her. He is used to creating insecurity in others, so he can elevate himself. But she is secure without being proud, firm without being cruel, bold without being bitter. She influences by design, not by force. You see, the narcissist builds kingdoms made of mirrors, illusion, projection, reflection, but no substance. The virtuous woman builds a home, a legacy, a standard. Her influence carries generations because it's built on values, not vanity. She influences because she carries wisdom, not because she seeks worship. When she enters a room, the temperature shifts, not because she demands attention, but because she carries atmosphere. Her influence is subtle, but seismic. She speaks life into dry places. She calls out purpose in broken people. She doesn't entertain foolishness, but she empowers the humble. She doesn't lead with seduction, because she understands that true power is never in the sway of the hips, but in the strength of the spirit. She knows that she doesn't need to manipulate emotions. She simply tells the truth, and the truth sets people free. And here's what terrifies the narcissist the most. She doesn't need him. She may have loved him. She may have given him a place. She may have prayed for him. But her identity is not built around him. Her world does not rise and fall with his moods. She will not compromise her calling for his convenience. That kind of woman is not just hard to control. She is impossible to replace. She is influence in its purest form, not laced with performance, not tainted by ego, just pure, convicting, commanding, complete. And so when a narcissist meets a woman like this, he is exposed, not by confrontation, but by contrast. Her very existence is proof that there's another way to live. Her influence becomes a mirror. While he tries to convince others he is powerful, her life quietly proves what real power looks like. Her love is not used as a leash. It is an invitation to rise. Her loyalty is not for sale. It is earned through truth. And when she walks away, she doesn't do it to punish. She does it to preserve her purpose. That is influence without seduction. That is power without domination. That is why a virtuous woman doesn't just survive a narcissist. She dismantles him. Not because she tried to destroy him, but because she refused to lose herself for him. True victory over a narcissist begins within. It is not won by shouting louder, arguing harder, or even by forcing the narcissist to change. No, the battlefield is far deeper, far more personal. It is the arena of the soul, the mind, and the spirit. Before a virtuous woman can dismantle the power of a narcissist in her life, she must first conquer herself. This is the secret that many overlook. The external conflict is always a reflection of an internal victory. Why is this so important? Because a narcissist is a master of manipulation and deception. They twist reality, create confusion, and push emotional buttons with precision. If a woman approaches this challenge without mastering her own emotions and identity, she risks becoming caught in the narcissist's web, reacting impulsively and feeding the toxic cycle. But when a woman is grounded in her own victory, when she understands her worth, controls her responses, and holds her boundaries, she becomes untouchable. Conquering oneself means several profound things. First, it means knowing who you are, beyond the lies the narcissist may have whispered to you or the world's noisy opinions. It means having a deep-rooted sense of identity that is not shaken by manipulation or criticism. A virtuous woman cultivates this by reflecting daily on her values, her purpose, and her strengths. She looks inward and acknowledges her flaws, not with shame, but with courage, committed to growth and healing. This self-awareness is the foundation of true power. Second, conquering oneself means mastering emotions. Narcissists thrive on chaos because chaos fuels their control. They provoke anger, frustration, fear, and self-doubt because these reactions weaken a person's defenses. But a virtuous woman learns to pause before she reacts. She disciplines herself to breathe, to think, to pray or meditate, and to choose her responses carefully. She does not allow the narcissist's attempts to destabilize her to succeed. This emotional mastery is like a fortress. It protects her spirit and prevents her from being manipulated by impulsive feelings. Moreover, conquering oneself includes the ability to forgive, not to excuse harmful behavior, but to release the hold of bitterness and resentment that can consume a woman's heart. Forgiveness is not weakness, it is strength. It frees the victim from becoming a lifelong prisoner of the narcissist's cruelty. When a virtuous woman forgives, she breaks the cycle of pain, chooses her peace, and regains control over her life. This inner freedom makes her far more powerful than any external victory. Another crucial aspect of conquering oneself is the establishment and enforcement of boundaries. Narcissists test limits relentlessly, looking for the slightest crack to exploit. But a virtuous woman, having won her internal battle, knows the value of boundaries not just as a defense mechanism, but as a declaration of self-respect. She understands that boundaries are not about punishing others, but about honoring herself. She holds firm, not with anger or bitterness, but with the quiet confidence of one who has made peace with her worth. This internal victory also nurtures patience and perseverance. The path of dealing with a narcissist can be long and exhausting. It often requires endurance over time, rather than a quick, decisive confrontation. The virtuous woman recognizes that transformation takes time, and that some battles are won by simply refusing to engage in the war the narcissist tries to wage. She is steady, consistent, and unwavering in her principles. This endurance wears down the narcissist's tactics, leaving them powerless. Importantly, conquering oneself means living in alignment with one's highest values and truths. When a woman commits to honesty, integrity, and purity of heart, she becomes a living contradiction to the narcissist's world of lies, deceit, and selfishness. This alignment with truth is not just moral, but strategic. It dismantles the very foundation on which the narcissist's power stands. The narcissist cannot stand in the presence of unwavering truth without losing ground. Finally, this internal victory results in a peace that transcends circumstances. No matter what chaos the narcissist creates externally, the virtuous woman carries within her a calm assurance that cannot be shaken. This peace is a beacon. It draws others to her. It inspires respect, and it defies the narcissist's attempts to isolate and control. It is a peace born not of naivety, but of profound self-mastery. In the end, the true power of a virtuous woman lies in her ability to first conquer herself. This is the greatest and most lasting victory, because it cannot be taken away by any external force. The narcissist may rage, manipulate, or even disappear, but the woman who has conquered herself stands firm, free, and victorious. Her victory is not marked by the destruction of another, but by the elevation of her own spirit. So to every woman facing a narcissist, the challenge is clear. Look inward first. Build your identity. Master your emotions. Forgive, set boundaries, live your truth, and find your peace. This internal victory will make you not just a survivor, but a conqueror. And that truly is how only a virtuous woman can destroy a narcissist, not by force, but by becoming untouchable.